Chapter 17, Washington, D.C. The main building of the United States Department of State, 2201 C Street, was really two adjoining structures, one completed in 1939, the other in 1961. One, that is, at the advent of a world war, the other at the nadir of the Cold War. Every organization has a local history, an institutional memory that is cherished within its hallowed walls, if forgotten outside them. At the Department of State, there were auditoriums and meeting rooms for public events that bore the names of deceased dignitaries. There was, for example, the Loy Henderson Room, honoring a revered director of Near Eastern and African affairs from the 40s, and a large hall named for John Foster Dulles, the Secretary of State during the crucial years of the Cold War. Deep within the bowels of the newer building, however, were secure conference rooms that were not even dignified with names, but known only by numeric and alphabetic designations. The most secure such conference room was designated 0002A, and a casual visitor to the basement might have assumed that it was given over to maintenance and janitorial equipment like those to either side. The room was along a subterranean corridor of gray-painted cinder block, copper pipes, aluminum ductwork, and exposed fluorescent tubes. Meetings there were never catered. One did not go to any of the 000 rooms expecting pastries or cookies or sandwiches. The meetings were to be endured, not enjoyed, and anything that might prolong them was to be shunned. Certainly the subject of this morning's conference afforded no one any gratification. Ethan Zackheim, the leader of the freshly assembled team, scanned the 8 people at the table for signs of unspoken dissent. He was wary of quote-unquote groupthink, of the tendency of groups to fall into step, to agree on a unitary interpretation where the evidence itself was equivocal, open-textured, ambiguous. "Does everyone here feel confident of the appraisals we've been hearing so far?" he asked. Only noises of agreement were voiced. "Abigail," Zackheim said, turning to a large-boned woman in a high-collared blouse, "are you confident of your read of the signal's intelligence?" She nodded, her brown bangs lacquered and immobile. "It's confirmatory," she cautioned, "not conclusive. But in combination with the other data streams, it raises the confidence level of the assessment." "What about your team at imaging, Randall?" He turned to a slender, chalky-faced young man in a blue blazer who sat at the table with his shoulders hunched. "They've verified it 20 different ways," Randall Denning, the imaging expert, replied. "It's authentic. We're seeing a subject whom Chandler's people have identified as Tarquin, arriving at the Montreal Dorval just hours before the Solinger assassination. We've confirmed the authenticity of the security video. We don't see a significant margin of uncertainty here." He slid the Montreal photographs to Zackheim, who looked them over, though fully aware that his unaided eyes would see nothing that had eluded the imaging experts with their computer-assisted methods of analysis. "Likewise, this picture from the Luxembourg Gardens about 4 hours ago," the imaging expert went on. "Pictures can be misleading, no?" Zackheim gave him a questioning look. "It's not just about the picture, it's about our ability to interpret them, which has become immeasurably more sophisticated in recent years. Our computers can look at thresholding, border analysis, saturation gradients of all kinds, and detect variances that even most experts would never notice." "Plain English, damn it," Zackheim interjected. Denning shrugged. "Consider that this one image is an enormously rich package of information. The twig patterns of a tree, the sap spills, the algae growth, all these things change day by day. A simple tree is never the same object 2 days in a row. Here you've got a complex field of objects, terrain with a very particular contour, patterns of shadows, which not only identify the time of day, but also provide information about the configuration of thousands of discrete objects. He tapped at the lower quadrant of the photograph with a black stylus. Under magnification, we can see that there's a bottle cap approximately 3 centimeters from the gravel path. An Orangina bottle cap. It wasn't there the day before. Zackheim found himself drumming his fingers. That seems a pretty slender reed. Diurnal detritus is the trade jargon in my department for this sort of detail. It's exactly what makes real-time archaeology possible. Zackheim fixed him with a hard stare. We're about to do something that's as serious as a coronary and every bit as irreversible. I need to be sure we have everything nailed down. Before Tarquin is declared beyond salvage, we need to be sure we're not heading off half-cocked. Certainty is possible in high school arithmetic textbooks. The speaker was a round-bellied man with a spherical head and heavy black frame glasses. His name was Matthew Wexler, and he was a 20-year veteran of the Department of State's Bureau of Intelligence and Research. He was a homely man with a slovenly appearance. He was also in possession of a formidable intellect, compared by one Secretary of State to a combine harvester. He had the uncanny ability to assimilate vast quantities of complex information and turn them into clear bullet point distillations. He could translate data into action items, and he was not afraid to make a decision. In Washington, it was a quality of mind that was in scarce supply and great demand and valued accordingly. Certainty does not exist in the real world of decision-making. If we were to wait for complete certainty, action would be so delayed as to be irrelevant, and as the painful old saw reminds us, not to decide is to decide. One cannot decide with no information, but one can't wait until one has complete information. There's a gradient between the two termini, and procedural integrity consists in the ability to choose the right point of partial knowledge. Zackheim struggled to conceal his annoyance. Ever since someone had dubbed this credo the Wexler Principle, the analyst missed no opportunity to recite it. In your view, have we reached it? In my view, Wexler said, we're a safe distance beyond it. He stretched his arms in a stifled yawn. I'd also draw people's attention to the question marks that hover over previous assignments of his. This is someone who must be stopped discreetly before he brings his employers into disrepute. I trust you mean his former employers? Zackheim turned again to the chalky-faced young man in the blue blazer. And the identification is good? Very, Randall Denning said. As we've discussed, Tarquin has changed his physiognomy by surgical means. The typical resort of an agent gone rogue, Wexler put in. But the basic facial indices are constant, Denning went on. You can't alter the distance between the orbital cavities, the eye sockets, or the slope of the supraorbital foramen. You can't change the curve of the mandible and maxilla without destroying dentition. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Zackheim barked. The imaging expert glanced around him. The point's just that plastic surgery can't touch the basic bone structure of the skull. The nose, cheeks, chin, these are superficial protuberances. Computer-assisted facial identification systems can be set to ignore them and zero in on what can't be changed. He handed Zackheim yet another photograph. If that is Tarquin, the image showed a man in his 30s, a distinctively Western face in a crowd of Asians. Then so is this. He tapped his hard rubber stylus at the surveillance photograph of the man at the Montreal airport. The Deputy Director of Consular Operations, Franklin Runciman, had said little at the meeting. He was a rugged-looking man with piercing blue eyes, a heavy brow, strong features. His suit looked expensive, a blue-gray worsted with a subtle window pane pattern. Now he sat glowering. "I see no reason to postpone a decision," he said at last. Zackheim had been perplexed, even annoyed, by Runciman's decision to attend the meeting. Zackheim had been tasked with leading the team, but the presence of a more senior officer could not but undermine his authority. Now he gave the deputy director an expectant look. "Alerts will be relayed to all of our stations and posts," the Consops man said in a rumbling voice. "And a retrieval team," he pronounced the euphemism with vague distaste, "must be tasked and deployed, capture or terminate." "I say we bring in the other agencies," Zackheim said, clenching his jaw. "The FBI, the CIA." A slow headshake from Runciman. "We'll outsource if we need to, but we don't drag in our American colleagues. I'm old school. I've always believed in the principle of self-correction." He paused and turned his piercing gaze at Ethan Zackheim. "At Cons Ops, we clean our own litter box."